Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Bapak Ibu semuanya. Selamat sore. Oke, kembali lagi kita hadir. Welcome to webinar Inquiry-Based Learning versus Discovery Learning, which is right for your classroom. I am Nadia Isnan. I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Okay, before we start, I would like to take a look at to our gallery. I can see. Okay, I can see Ibu Suti from SMA N1 Kalianda. Okay, halo Ibu. I also can see Ibu Mulyati, Bapak Eko Prastio. Thank you so much for joining us. And Ibu Muryanti, you look so fresh, Bapak Ibu. Yeah, okay. Thank you for joining us today. So, you also can start by rename your Zoom account into name. And then strip your where you live. Okay, so for example, here I want to change my name. Okay, it becomes Nadia from Tangerang. Okay, so Bapak Ibu, you also can try to rename your account, Zoom account, right? So we can know where you are from, all right? Okay, thank you so much, Bapak Ibu. Good. Now, Bapak Ibu, we are going to have a very exciting and informative session, of course. Before we go to the session, I will also share some important notes for today's event. The first one, okay, do not worry, we are going to share the e-certificate for you if you fill in the personal list that we are going to share to you at the end of the session. Okay, so make sure you will be here until the end of the session. Jadi pastikan Bapak Ibu berhadir di sini gitu ya, sampai nanti sesi kedua gitu. Okay, so our e-certificate is worth for JP atau 4 jam pelajaran, and it will be sent to your email before next Thursday. Okay, so if you haven't got it next Monday, do not worry. Ya, jangan khawatir karena Monday masih libur. Okay, we are going to process it before Thursday. Yeah, but if you haven't got it until Thursday, just do not, just call or just text Maya. Okay, right. So Bapak Ibu, make sure you fill in the present list at the end of the session. Okay. And then I also would like to greet the participants, the teachers who join us from YouTube. Halo Bapak Ibu semuanya, thank you so much for joining us. Okay, you also can still join us from Zoom if it is possible for you. Yeah, because we have an interactive one here on Zoom. Because Bapak Ibu, if you join us from Zoom, you can type, okay, and comment anything, yeah, regarding our topic today. All right. Okay, so back to the topic, as we are going to discuss about inquiry-based learning versus discovery learning. Okay, I believe some of you have known about this one, yeah, because there are a lot of webinar talking about this, right? But then today we will not only discuss about the theory, okay, but we are going to find out how can we how we can apply this one and implement this one in our classroom. And just like the title, which is right for your classroom, inquiry-based learning or discovery learning, right? Okay, so today we have two experts talking about this one. Okay, the first one we have Mr. Kevin Febryan, the Chief Product Officer of Atlaz. Okay, he is here already. And we also have Miss Uyun Nishar MA. She is the Education Project Officer from GovTech Edu. Okay, I guess she is here already. And Mr. Kevin, okay. How are you, Miss Uyun, Mr. Kevin?
I'm great, Miss Nadia. And hello, Miss Uyun.
Sorry, I'm great. Great to see you again, Nadia. And great to see you, Mr. Kevin, also, Bapak Ibu. Thank you.
we're going to have Mr. Kevin on the first session, and later we are going to meet Miss Uyun on the second session. All right. Okay. See you both. Okay. All right. So, Bapak Ibu, I believe that you cannot wait to have our session. I would like to still take a look at to our gallery. I can see there is Bapak Jamali. Halo Bapak. Okay. Ibu Magdalena, you are also from Tangerang, Ibu. Okay, I guess we are so close, right? Okay. All right. So Bapak Ibu, if it is possible for you, you can open up your camera. So yeah, we can have more interactive session today ya. Jadi bisa lebih saling menyapa dan saling melihat nih ya. Oke, thank you. Alright then, Bapak Ibu, if you are happy just to have this webinar today, do not forget to take a picture or yes, screenshot this one and share on your social media such as Instagram. And do not forget to tag us at hi.atlas. All right. Okay, so I think it is time for us to have the first session with our first speaker. Okay, I would like to give this session to Mr. Kevin. Mr. Kevin, okay, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so Mr. Kevin, the floor is yours, please.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Nadia. All right. Let me try to spotlight myself. Wait. There you go. Okay, thank you so much, Nadia. Okay, so hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I guess like I'm meeting some of you that I met before. So hello again. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Mr. Kevin. You can call me Kevin or Mr. Kevin. It's up to you. But I'm currently the Chief Product Officer of Atlas. So basically, I'm in charge of the curriculum and the books and everything that is going on with Atlas. So I just want to greet everyone first. So please just type in the chat box. So how are you today? Just as simple as that. How are you? And I want you to answer honestly if you feel, I feel so sad today. I feel angry, or I feel good. I feel happy. What do you feel? How do you feel right now? Okay, just type in the chat box. I want to see like how everybody's doing today. Yes, Miss Mulyati, you're good. I'm great. Thanks for asking as well. Happy from Miss Wafa. Awesome. Happy from Miss Grace. Not so good. Oh, you got the flu. That's from Mystery. I also got the flu last week, so hopefully you'll get over it, okay? I'm good today. Okay, very, very awesome. Yay, okay. That's very, very nice. Okay, so that's really awesome. Great, but a bit sleepy. Okay, so Mr. or Miss Riska, don't forget to grab your cup of coffee, all right, next to you. So just in case you are sleepy, you can always drink it. So good today. Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm wishing everybody a really great day today. If you're not feeling too well, hopefully you'll get better soon. Okay. All right, so very, very nice. I want to start before I go to my slides. I want to start by asking everybody this riddle. So I have a riddle, but it's not too difficult. But I'm just going to give you some clues, and I want you to guess what I am doing. Okay, so this is, I promise this is in relation to what we're going to learn today, okay, about inquiry-based learning and discovery learning, but I just want you to try to answer. So I want you to imagine being in a classroom, right? So you're the teacher, or maybe you're a student. I am the teacher. So as the teacher, I bring into the class, I have an empty Coke bottle. This is the 1 liter bottles, the big one, right? So one empty bottle and one balloon that is not inflated yet. So this is still the regular balloon, the rubber balloon, right? And then I have scissors and I have rubber bands. Just those four things, okay? Let me type in the chat box so you know what I'm talking about. So the first one is empty bottle. The second one is balloon. The third one is scissors. The fourth one is rubber bands. Okay, so the context is basically we're learning science today. Imagine we're being science teachers, even though we're probably English teachers, right? Imagine we're teaching science today. So what do you think we are making just from these four materials, basically? So I am the teacher. I bring into the class, okay, guys, so we're going to make something today. Can you guess what it is? I'm just going to give you these four things, but I'm not telling you what we're making. So can you guess? Just type in the chat box. What do you think we are making? And I promise there's no right, no wrong answer. So you can try anything that you think we might be making today, okay? Just type in the chat box. What do you think we're making today? I like that, Mr. Echo. Balloon flying, boom. Awesome. Okay, good. What else? I want to know. Probably about the respiratory system. Very nice. Good. Okay. Anything else? A vase from a bottle. Good. Okay. All right. Yeah. It's just funny how like everybody has totally different answers, right? Okay. What else? A birthday party. Yeah, yeah, could be. Very nice. From Miss Erliani, going to make a party. Miss Emanuela popping balloon. Very nice. Miss Wafa flying balloon with a bottle. Good. Trumpet. Yeah, very nice. Maybe we're going to make those. Okay, very nice. So keep it going. Okay, just keep thinking what it is. So I'm not going to tell you what the answer is, the exact answer, what I have in mind, but I'm telling you that all of these are somewhat correct. Okay, so keep in mind that all your answers are somewhat correct, but you don't know what my aim is. You don't know what I want to do with all these materials yet, right? But basically, you're in class and you're doing exactly what I'm asking you to do. And then we'll figure out later. Okay. So keep in mind what you just told me in the chat box, basically. Okay. Simulation, lungs, right? So lung simulation. So maybe, okay, maybe. Very nice. Good. Okay. So very awesome. Good. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay. So basically for my part, I'm going to explain a little bit. So my part is probably a little bit deeper into the English learning itself, while later with Miss Oyun later, you will get into, I think, deeper into the inquiry-based itself and discovery itself. So I won't get too deep into the theory or maybe the background history about it, but it's about how you can implement these in your classrooms. Because I think that's the most important part from my experience, because I've been using these methods in my teaching experience as well. And I want to share it with you how you can actually use it and utilize it, especially if you're teaching English, basically, okay? And if you see the title, basically I call it active English learning. There's a reason why I call it active, because regardless whether you're using inquiry or using discovery learning, both are active method. So these are not something that maybe we know how conventional classrooms are, where teachers are speaking, but it's more about the students. So it's very student-centered, and that's what we will see. And often I would say people kind of just have this misconception about the two, thinking like, oh, they're the same, exactly the same, or they're similar. So we're going to debunk everything today. So we're going to see like what they are actually. Okay. So a little bit about myself, if you don't know me yet. So that's my background. So I've graduated from the University of Southern California with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. And my experiences, I've been the Director of Studies at English First, have been teaching English since 2018, and in charge of developing teachers and academic excellence, and teaching students from the age of 3 years old to adults. So just basically, if you're teaching children or if you're teaching adults, you can still try to implement what I'm telling you today. Okay. All right. So this is about Atlaz itself. If you don't know what Atlaz is an English book publisher. So we provide books for schools, basically, but not only the books. So we know like how books can be varying, right? From all different types of books. There is the easy one, difficult one. But basically in Atlas, what we believe in, we don't just provide the materials for you, but we also provide the support, which is also very important, because regardless how good your book is, whatever you're using at your school, if you don't know how to utilize it well, then you're not going to get the full essence of the materials themselves. So that's what we're doing. That's why we're doing it this way through webinars like this. So if you're using Atlas, we're going to give you the support through this kind of webinars or workshops, which we use to empower you so you can have better classrooms and better teaching methodologies overall. Okay. So for my part, I think there won't be too long. So the first one I'll be talking about inquiry-based first in English learning and then discovery learning. And then we will talk about the advantages of using both approaches and also talk about anticipating if there's any drawback whatsoever. And the last one is how we actually do it in Atlas because we have provided it in our materials themselves as well. Okay, so before we jump into inquiry-based and discovery, I'm going to ask you questions again. So type in the chat box. We'll talk about inquiry first, okay? What do you know about inquiry-based learning? Or have you ever heard it before? Or maybe you haven't heard it before. That's okay. All are fine. So please type in the chat box. What do you know about inquiry-based learning? What is it? So I'm going to give some time. What do you think is inquiry-based learning? From Dr. Sujaryadi, right? Learning maybe probably with something new that you found. Very nice. Focus on problem solving and investigation. Very, very nice. Miss Morianty. Okay. Oh, Mr. Dede just joined. Welcome, Mr. Dede. Okay. We're still waiting on some answers. Have you heard of inquiry-based learning? Or maybe what do you know about inquiry-based learning itself? From Mr. Muhammad Jamali, teaching method that students get the understanding by themselves with the teacher's guide. Find things by themselves, probably. Kind of learning model to make our students more active. Finding a new, okay, I think Mr. Orleani is still not done. Something new, perhaps. From Ms. Muliati, learning activity that students. Oh, okay. Facilitate students to ask questions, carry out investigation searches, experiments, research environment to gain knowledge they need. Very nice. Student can learn from the student knowledge before. Powerful approach to teaching and learning to help students become correct. Learning activities emphasize development of investigative skills, habits of thinking that enable students to continue their search for knowledge. Okay, very, very nice. Tracking the mind to be logical thinking. Very, very nice. Good. Okay, so you just explained to me what inquiry-based is. Yes, IBL, or we call it inquiry-based. Very nice. So now what about discovery learning? What do you know about discovery learning? Have you heard it before? What do you think it means? Or you can also talk about like how you can actually use it in class, or have you ever used that before in class? From Ms. Sri, educational strategy in which students follow methods practices similar to those of professional scientists in order to construct knowledge. Very nice. So I guess like if we're talking about scientists, that means like if we're talking specifically for science itself, right? So probably if you're talking about English or any other subjects, probably those experts in those fields. Very, very nice. Finding the logically reason. Okay. Very nice, Mr. Echo. What else? So now we're talking about discovery learning. What do you know about discovery learning? What do you think it is? Have you ever heard it before? A learning model that involves students in seeking and investigating knowledge independently. Yeah. All right. Very, very nice. Students acquire knowledge through exploration, projects, problem solving, and play, contrasting traditional instructional methods like lectures and textbooks. Very nice. Thank you for the bolded answer as well. I don't know how you get bolded text in the chat box. That's awesome. Discover students learn through exploration and inquiry. Okay, so you see how it's going, right? So if you scroll through the chats, you see there's redundancy or there's a repetition in terms of the meaning of discovery or the meaning of inquiry base itself, right? There's like critical thinking, there's like students investigating themselves, the logical reasoning. There's also, what is that called? Even using the word inquiry as a part of discovery itself, right? So that's pretty much how it's confusing for most of us if we don't know what actually they are. Okay, very, very nice. So keep typing if you are typing. So I'm going to continue. But in terms of the definition, so Ms. Uyun later will give you the actual definition itself based on the research and everything. But at least for my part, I want you to have this mindset that yes, both inquiry and discovery are very similar, but there's a slight difference to it. And we're going to see what that is. And I think it's easier to see it rather than trying to understand based on the definition. Because if we just take a look at the definition, we search it online, yeah, but we're not really getting it, right? So what is actually difference, or how can we use one or the other? We're going to talk about that. Okay, so I will start from inquiry-based learning itself. So all your definitions that you gave, they were all correct, basically. So basically, we're talking about critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills. But the most important part, I will start from the blue box there because I think this is the very essence of the inquiry-based learning itself. The important keywords are curiosity and students-driven. So the reason why it's curiosity is that when you are teaching something to the students with inquiry-based learning, you want the students to be curious. So it's not something that, okay, guys, today we're going to learn about this. I know you're not interested in it, but we have to learn it anyway. So that's not making students curious at all, right? That's just us trying to tell them, you need to learn this. That's not inquiry. If it's something that's inquiry-based learning, that means we have to make it interesting or make the students curious about the topic itself first before we do anything. So then it leads to the next point, which is it often starts with questions. So if any teachers are using inquiry-based learning in their teaching, then they often start with the questions. So if you remember my first session today, right? I asked you just very simple questions. How are you today? How do you feel? That's already a question, right? Then I ask again, so what do you think is inquiry-based learning? What do you think is discovery learning? So asking questions actually help you to gauge students' understanding first, or your audience. So you get to understand, okay, how far do they know about this? So for example, maybe they know much about this past tense, right? But they don't know how to use it yet. But in terms of past tense, yeah, students have learned it before, so they know there's a tense that they need to use to refer back to the past. But are they aware of the keywords in using past tense? Are they aware that maybe they can refer to the word yesterday, so they know they have to use past tense? Maybe not yet. So that's how we can make them curious about it. So we ask them the question, do you know the word yesterday? Yeah, everybody knows the word yesterday, Mr. Right? That's usually how your students will respond. And you can say, okay, but do you know if we're talking about the present, the future, or the past, right? Oh, we're talking about the past, Mr. Okay, very awesome. So what tense do we use? Past tense. Okay, awesome. So do we say I go to the bathroom yesterday or I went to the bathroom yesterday? Okay, probably that's too extreme, right? I went to the bathroom this morning as well, not just yesterday. But you get the point. So basically, it's not just us telling them like, this is where you're going to learn. Inquiry-based is making them curious about the topic first. So we gauge their understanding. Then we add values to it. And students actually, we don't have to tell them sometimes. Students will learn by themselves. So that's inquiry-based. So there is a reason why they need to learn it instead of us just telling what to do. Then the next point is it promotes critical thinking. So basically, it's not just, okay, we understand that that is a past tense, but it's able to actually utilize past tense in every different circumstance there is. So what kind of situation do we have to use it for? Then the students will have to ask questions to you or even to themselves. Do I have to use past tense in this setting? What if I don't have the word yesterday, but I am actually referring to the past? Do I have to use past tense or do I use present tense for that, Mr.? So when students start asking questions, that's when you know that you are on the right track, basically. So if they are not asking questions, that means they're not thinking critically. So you ask them questions, students also are creating questions in their head and sometimes ask you the questions themselves as well. So there's a lot of questions happening in inquiry-based learning. So I would say it's 180 degrees from the conventional way of teaching, where teachers are telling students what to do, telling students this is what it is, You need to take notes and learn it and memorize. That's the conventional way, right? There's not a lot of questions. But inquiry, we are actually evoking questions. We are asking them to ask more questions because that's how we know that students are thinking critically. Then it goes beyond what they are learning. It's more about the why. So it's not about definition anymore. So that's why when we're talking about inquiry-based learning, we don't just want students to understand, let's say, okay, what is past tense? They can memorize. Let's say if I'm just taking a look at our chat box. So let's say I want to take a look at Miss Noor, for example. Miss Noor said, students acquire knowledge through exploration, projects, problem solving, and play, contrasting traditional instructional methods like lectures and textbooks. Okay, awesome. So definition-wise, the teacher knows how to explain it, right, in terms of the definition. But if I'm asking like, okay, how do you apply it to your classroom? So if I'm pointing, let's say maybe at Miss Suti, for example, what does it mean? What did Miss Noor mean by that? Maybe if she doesn't really know it, then she won't be able to explain it or to show that she actually knows it. So that is the conventional way. The inquiry-based means that it goes beyond just knowing what it means, but actually are able to imply it, to apply it to what they're doing. So that's inquiry-based itself. Then the last point, which is also very important, is teachers are facilitators. So that's another thing. The role is very specific and inquiry-based. So we understand if you visited our previous webinars, you understood we have all different roles, right? Sometimes we are the students' friends, sometimes we are their dialogue partners, sometimes we are their instructors, but that's not what we are. Our role is just one. In inquiry-based learning, it's basically just facilitators because we are helping the students. We're not telling them what to do, but we are actually asking them what they are learning so they can learn by themselves. So it's basically a lot to sink in, but I will allow that to process throughout this webinar itself. So if we take a look on the right side there, what can you do in class? So these are some things that you can do if you want to implement inquiry-based learning in your classrooms. So the first one, you want to start your lesson by always asking questions. And the questions can all vary. So it doesn't have to be, how are you? How do you do? You can use, what did you do this morning? Have you eaten? Have you drunk your water? Have you greeted maybe your teacher today, right? Have you met your friend? Whatever it is, right? Start with the question first. Then from that general question, you want to become more specific into what you are teaching. So let's take a look, maybe. So I'm giving you some clues in terms of what we talk about the water bottle and everything, right? So I'm giving you some clue. So do you know that we can actually make something from water bottle, from rubber bands, from balloons? What do you think we can make? Then we have all varying answer from the students, right? We can make this, mister. We can make respiratory system. We can make whatever it is, like flying balloons. We can make all of that. Okay, that's awesome. So let's try to guess what you think we're making today, right? So then we guide them through the next steps. But you always want to make them curious first by using their past experience. So they know that they have seen all these materials before, obviously, and they know that we have potentials in terms of turning it into something else, and they know the potential outcomes. But what they don't know yet is what they are learning, because that has to be a part of the process itself. It should not be told at the beginning. So we have the tendency of always telling students, we have to learn how to make this today because you need to learn this law, for example. You need to learn this grammar. You need to learn this. If we're doing it that way, then the students will lose the curiosity because all they are doing is just fulfilling their duty as the students. Then we don't have this leverage that we are actually gaining from inquiry-based learning. We're losing the essence. So that's why you don't want to tell them what to do yet or what they are learning. So let them explore throughout the process itself. That's what inquiry-based learning is. Then the next one, scaffold each lesson. So let students relate to any new topics by making connections with their past experiences. So what they knew in the past, then use that into what they are learning right now. So don't jump into something that, okay, you think you don't know what it is, so you're going to learn it today. You have to somehow relate it to what they knew in the past so that they can make the connection, because that connection is very important to actually retain the information in their head. Because if they don't make that connection, then they're going to think this is something that's completely new. What I knew in the past is not relevant to it, so there's no connection. So at the end, I'm not going to remember fully what the two are, basically. The next one, use can-do statements in your lesson aims. So if you take a look at Atlas lesson plans, we actually use this in every lesson. So let's say you are teaching past tense today. So by the end of the lesson, students will be able to, then we fill in what they are able to do with what we're giving. So we don't tell them, for example, so students will be able to use past tense. So that's not what it is. So we have to go beyond what past tense is. What is past tense for? Think of the functional approach to it. So past tense is to talk about the past, right? So we use that. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to talk about the past, for example. How do students talk about the past? By using past tense, right? So it's not about learning the past tense itself. That's not what it is, especially when we're talking about the language, because we can have students memorizing all the grammatical tenses there are, right? All the 16 of them, but they won't be able to use it when they're speaking correctly if they don't understand how to use them functionally. And that's not how it's supposed to be, right? For languages, we're not just learning and memorizing rules or words or sentences, but we're actually utilizing them into speaking, into using, to producing, into writing, whatever it is. So that's your aim, right? Basically have the can-do statement. The next one, the sub skills. So you know what sub skills are, right? So we're talking about, let's say, reading strategies, reading for what is it, intensive reading or reading, skimming, scanning. Those are all the sub skills. So they are seen as the tools you provide to help them achieve the aim. So your aim is pretty much what you told them, what you told in the lesson plan earlier, right? What your lesson aim is. So for example, in order for students to be able to give advice in English, they should know the modal verb should. So that's a part of the vocabulary, right? So the vocabulary is using the word should. Using infinitive after modal verbs, which is the grammar. So they have to know the verb form, right? The verb form is using verb one. So students should say, you should do your homework, not you should doing your homework, not you should did your homework, or you should will do your homework. That's not how it is. You should do your homework, because after the word should, they have to use verb one or infinitive verb. That's a part of the grammar, right? Then figure out similarities and differences between first, second, and third person perspectives. Also part of the grammar and the register itself. So using you, he, she, they, how they will change everything, or do they stay the same? Students will need to understand that as well. So all these sub skills, you need to use them to gain the aim. So it's not the other way around. It's not about, okay, you need to know how to use should. That's basically how we do it in class, right? Usually it's like, you should know how to use should. After should, you use this. Then at the end of the day, you use should to give advice. So that's not inquiry-based. That's still the conventional method. The inquiry-based is that you want students to be able to use that in a setting that you are very specifically giving to your students. So giving advice, that's the most important part. How do we give advice? Using should. How do we use should? By using infinitive verb after the should. And does it change after we use should with I, you, we, they? It doesn't. It stays the same. So then that is inquiry-based itself. The last one, what you want to do, as any approach there is, you want to assess students and build routines on students reflecting upon their own learning. So the reflection has to come from the students themselves more than the teachers. So yes, we teachers, we can initiate the reflection itself, but that's not as effective as students learning by themselves. So by realizing, let's say, oh, this is what I learned today. This is the mistake that I learned today, and I corrected myself in this way and that way, for example. So that's the end of the lesson. Always promote reflection upon your lesson to your students. Okay, so that's about inquiry-based. Let's talk about discovery. So discovery, if we take a look at it, it's very similar. It's very, very much similar to inquiry-based because it's also students-focused. It's also about, yeah, we also can ask questions, right? But there is something that's slightly different about discovery and learning itself. Let's take a look at the blue box again. So remember, learning by exploring. So the main intention for discovery is the exploration part. So it's not about getting into understanding one specific thing if it's discovery. That's the difference between discovery and inquiry. For inquiry, we learned before that there's that specific thing that we want students to learn, right? So we want students to, by the end of the lesson, they should be able to use should to give advice, for example. But now it's not about that anymore, right? It's about exploring. So it's more general. So discovery learning is a general approach. And it is often used together with project-based learning. So that's why you will see later in Atlas, we actually give out discovery approaches when we are handing out projects in class. Then the students uncover the concepts by themselves with the help of the teachers. So the concepts themselves are not told by the teachers because the concepts is not just one. There are many concepts. That's what I did in the beginning with you all, right? When I asked you the question, what do you think we're making? They're all correct. Why? Because at the end of the day, as long as you are following what I'm telling you to do, as long as you're learning something from it, even though what you're learning from what the other teachers are learning might be slightly different or even completely different, that's fine, right? So that's the difference. For inquiry-based approach, the end results should still be somehow similar or even the same. We want students to achieve that, right? This is very targeted, very specific. For discovery, it's almost like, okay, as long as you're learning with me, you're learning something with me, you already did something today, right? You already learned something today. That's discovery. The aim is not towards specific goals or aims, but rather more general. And there's something called guided discovery, which I will talk about here and on the left side there. That's also quite important. So guided discovery means that we are guiding the students towards finding out what the project is about. So again, we're not telling students like, oh, you need to create this, you need to make that. That's not what guided discovery is. Basically, we are asking, what do you think we're making today? Okay, so if you think we're making that, how do you think we can make that? What is the right method to do it? What's the first step? Oh, you think we should do that? Okay, sure. But if let's say they're getting too far away from the target aim itself for today, maybe if it's something that's completely different. Maybe in for today, I think something that was completely off the record is throwing a birthday party because that is not related to whatever I want to do today, right? So I will tell them, I don't think it's about birthday parties. So can you think something that's more science, right? Because I told you it's about science. Birthday party is not too sciencey, right? So what we're going to talk about science more. So what do you think? What else do you think we will do with it? So then, oh, okay. I think we're going to make this I don't know, hot air balloon or whatever it is, right? So then we guide them if they are off the track. So we keep them on the track by guiding them. But it does not mean that you're guiding them all the time. You only guide them whenever it's necessary. So once you have guided them, then you feel free to leave them, let them explore again, and allow themselves to ask you questions whenever they need you as well. So that's with the discovery learning. It's very free, right? Basically, and you can do that. Okay, then the last one, ask students at the end of the lesson what they think they have acquired from doing the activity. Accept all possible answers. So basically, what is important is that every student gets the takeaway from doing the activity itself. It's not what you want. Because if what you want is, let's say, I want students to create the best hot air balloon there is, then obviously that's not guided discovery. That's us modeling how to create a hot air balloon. There's a difference there, right? So now you know that using guided discovery or discovery learning itself, you don't tell students what to do. They can explore by themselves. If your project somehow needs you to tell them what to do, then that's not discovery learning. That's just a simple modeling type of learning. So that's the difference. Okay. So let's take a look at the advantages. So I believe that whatever approach there is an advantage in using each method, but you need to understand how to utilize them. Like today's webinar, like Miss Nadia has mentioned earlier, which one is right for my class? So you know the right answer for yourself. Nobody else can tell you about that because it depends on whatever you need it for. So let's take a look at each advantage. If we take a look at conventional learning, so this is the traditional way of learning. We tell them what to do, students learn, take notes, we test them, right? Regular way. So this is very easy to follow routine for sure, because it's very straightforward for the teachers as well for the students. Teachers can feel more accomplished as more things are being done under limited time. So content efficiency, you get to cover a lot of things within one lesson only. Class seems more conducive since teachers are leading most of the time. Formal assessments can be done effortlessly, right? Because everything is towards the formal assessment stuff. Everything is about the test, right? That's the conventional way of learning. Make sure they have good grades at the end of the lesson. That's what we want. And very end, very focused learning goals, thus making it easier to prepare for standardized tests. If let's say in the future, they need to take whatever TOEFL, IELTS, SATs, right? This is the best approach, I would say, because it's about taking the test. It's about reaching the goals. But we're not really focusing on whether the students fully understand or not, whether they can use it in real life situation or not. That's out of the context in conventional learning. However, let's take a look at inquiry-based learning. What are some of the advantages? First, they support differentiated learning. So if we are struggling with differentiated learning, know that if you're using inquiry-based learning, it will come naturally to you because everything is more differentiated, because you have to know one student has a different pace than the other student. Well, one student might explore towards this direction, that student might explore in that direction. It's okay as long as they're still within the same realm and they're still achieving the same goal or the same aim at the end of the lesson, right? But the differentiation happens in how the students are doing it. So naturally speaking, this approach is already differentiated. The second one, it encourages collaboration and communication instead of competition, because the students get to work with other students. They get to work with the teachers, right? The teachers are not leaving the classroom or allowing students to explore without any guidance. You are still there. So the collaboration happens with you in it as well. Then it builds a sense of love for learning and autonomy in learning, because you want the students to learn by themselves instead of you telling them what to do. Students gain deeper understanding through analytical and critical thinking, because you want students to keep asking questions. You don't want to just accept. Then the last one, it enhances adaptability and problem-solving skills for real-world problems. Then let's take a look at discovery learning. So this is very general, right, compared to inquiry-based learning, but there are still advantages in terms of using discovery, and you want to use this in your classroom. But I'm suggesting not to do it all the time, because if you do it all the time, we will see the disadvantages after this slide. Basically, you might lose direction, and that's not what we want, right? But some of the advantages are, the first one, students feel they have full autonomy of their own learning, because basically there's no wrong answer in whatever they're doing, right? As long as they're doing exactly the project you're asking them to do with the right materials, then they're learning something from it. The second one, more interest-driven. Students choose their own methods in accomplishing the task given. Third one, they build closer relationship between the teachers and also the students themselves, as there naturally is more trust put in each side. The students feel there is trust put upon them because the teachers are giving them the freedom in terms of what to learn, what to do. So students will feel like, I like this teacher because they allow me to do whatever I want. And the students don't realize that they're actually learning in that class, right? So that's awesome about discovery learning. Second to the last one, teaching is more flexible, following each student's own pace. And the last one, more ideas are developed due to each student having their own interpretation of what was learned. So when I was using discovery learning, I was surprised at how many new ideas that I didn't think of that came from the students themselves. And that might happen to you as well. And that's even better, right? Because that means your students are thinking more critically and also creatively. Okay, so of course there are drawbacks as well, which I want you to see. So let's take a look again at the conventional learning. So what are the drawbacks? Some of the potential drawbacks are they tend to be more monotonous and teacher-centered. So if this is the case, students usually get bored easily. The second one, rules are more important than the functions. So students are able to memorize a lot of things. Maybe they know verb one, verb two, verb three, but can they use them in the right setting? Can they use them with the right tenses? Maybe not. Maybe yes, but we're not sure. The last one, it's less personalized, more collective, because we're not following students' pace. We're following our pace that we need to complete this assignment by today, or we need to fulfill this timeline, whatever it is, right? That's conventional learning. Inquiry-based learning, this is time-consuming, one of the drawbacks, because when you're following the student's pace, you don't know when students are able to achieve the aim, and you have to be flexible about it. You cannot force, let's say, by the end of today, I want every student to understand. You will get some students who don't understand yet, and they might learn it in the next lesson, and that's perfectly fine. But you need to make sure that you're not under time constraint when you're using this method. And it's easy to fall into the less preparation, turning into vague discussions. So this happens a lot when teachers think like, I'm just going to do inquiry-based learning today. So I'm just going to ask them a bunch of questions, let them explore, and that's it. That's my lesson today. If that is the case, then you're going to have, well, the extreme part is meaningless discussion. But obviously, any discussion is not meaningless because they're still using the language anyway, right? But it's not as good as if you would have had any focus on it. What you want is you want a direction. So that's why it's easy to turn into directionless, and that's not what you want. So if you're using inquiry-based learning, make sure you have a direction, make sure you have an aim. It's not just you coming to class with no preparation, asking a bunch of questions and expecting them to learn something from you or from themselves. It's not magic, basically, all right? And last one, discovery learning. So what are the drawbacks? You are prone to lose track of the essence because every answer is correct, right? So students learn something from the lesson. Basically, there's no right, no wrong answer. So it's you might get lost into thinking that, oh, as long as students learn something, I'm a good teacher, right? That's not how it is, right? So there still needs to be guidance from you. So make sure that it's not just completely chaotic in a way, because if you're doing it that way, students will just talk to themselves. Maybe they're not even talking about the topic of the discussion, not even talking about the projects. They just do whatever they want, and your class turns into chaos. And that is prone to happen if you just leave them be. So the key is the guidance itself. The second one, it's also time consuming because you can't force students to understand the purpose of the activity, right? And the last one, if teachers are not clear, students might not grasp the main aim. So for example, if let's say today's purpose of us doing this discovery learning is for students to learn how to make a hot air balloon, for example. But maybe what they learn is that, oh, I know how to inflate a balloon, right? So that's, you might be getting that out of this. So students are not getting the real aim. So they might just be getting the activity itself, but not really the aim why they're doing that activity. So these are some of the potential drawbacks. You need to be sure that you are anticipating them, because if you are not, then you don't know what to do, and you might fall into the trap of thinking that you have done something good in your class while you haven't. So make sure that you are anticipating the drawbacks this way. So if you're taking a look at the comparison, right? So this is exactly what actually I wanted you to guess. Basically, in my head, what I had in mind when I was having the water bottle, the rubber band, the balloons, we're actually going to make rockets, for example. So to make rockets, we are going to use this different methodologies, for example, right? So if we're using the conventional learning, I will tell students that we're going to make rockets together. Then some students will be, yay, I love rockets. But we will probably have some girls who's like, oh, well, it's so boring. I would rather learn about Barbie, for example, today, right? So they don't like rockets. So you lose that essence of curiosity at the beginning when you tell them you're going to make something, because there will always be some people who don't like what you're telling them that this is what they need to do. Then you're going to give them a formula. Teachers explain how rocket works, give out the procedures. So this is the science behind the rocket, right? So you're going to use this, and this is the formula. That's the physics formula, right? Whatever it is, the acceleration will be equal to blah, 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 blah. Then the practice, students will try to do exactly what teacher just did. Then you test out at the end whether they fully understand or not. And you get to redo it all over again. That's the conventional way of doing it, right? For example, if we're teaching them how to make rockets in a science class. Then inquiry-based learning, if we're using this learning method, the first one is you want to ask the questions like what we did today, right? So if we're talking about rockets very specifically, we tell them, do you know how we make rockets, for example? Do you know how it works? It just flows into the space, right, mister? Okay, but how does it get to space? Can we get to space? No, why can't humans get to space on our own? What do we need rockets, right? So then they start thinking, oh, yeah, that's right. Now I'm curious. I want to learn more about it, right? So that's the inquiry based. You start with the question, make them curious first. Then you want the students to investigate. So based on their curiosity, find it out. So try to search it on Google or ask me questions. Then I will give you the answers. But I'm not telling you what the answers are, but I'm going to just answer whatever you're asking, for example. Then you experiment, right? You want students to experiment, build their own toy rockets, let them explore, give them the materials, see if they can make the rockets themselves based on what they have investigated. Then at the end, you analyze. So reflect on what the students have learned. So what do you think you have learned? We learned how to make rockets. Good. Okay. But what else? So, we actually learned as well, but the formula, how it goes faster and faster throughout the space when there's like even less air in the balloon. But that's when we're actually reaching terminal velocity, for example, whatever that is, right? So that's inquiry based. The last one, what about discovery learning? So we always want to start with exploring, right? The exploration part. So we just go to class, like what I did today. We just tell them like what to do, not what to do, just give them the materials. So the water bottle and everything, and just have them scattered all over the place, right? So guys, can you guess what we're making today? We're making rockets, we're making respiratory system, we're making this. Okay, so can you try to make these on your own? I'm gonna give you like 15 minutes. Try to make one, for example. But as they are doing it, you give them the guidance. Do you think that's the right way to do it? Do you think that that's the right way to do it? Are you sure that this is related to science? If let's say they're making birthday hats or whatever it is, right? It's not about birthday, we're still about the science. So as long as they're doing something sciencey, even if they're making respiratory system, if we want them to make rockets, that's perfectly fine too. There's nothing wrong with that because the aim is students learn something that's related to science. It's more general, right? So once we have guided them, then we ask students to share. So maybe students share, I have this respiratory system, I have this rocket, I have this hot air balloon. So everybody has all these different things. And they're all correct. There's nothing wrong with that, right? We tell them, okay, that's all great. All are correct. But what I want you to do is to get the reason behind it. What do you think we need to learn that? What do we need to learn rockets? What do we need to learn how to make a respiratory system? There's something in common with all of them, right? The balloon itself, the air that flows, that is the essence of today's discovery learning itself, for example. The last one, the application, you want relate to students' work to the main concept of the lesson aim, which is the science of the rocket itself, for example. So if whatever it is related to science, then it doesn't have to be rockets, right? It can be about anything else. It's up to you. So that's how you can use this methods in your classrooms, basically. Not one of them is more correct than the other. It's just, I think, more appropriate if you do it in one way or another. For example, if we're going to face standardized tests, I would use conventional learning method because the students need to know how to take the test correctly, right? They need to know right and wrong exactly on a piece of paper or on a computer. But if let's say we're going to just explore and we're going to utilize the language itself, we're going to focus on the speaking section, then we want to do the inquiry-based learning because there's something that's very specific what we want to achieve. But we also have another one, discovery learning. Let's say I want to do just projects, but it's not really important about the specific aim, but at least students are using language that is their second language, which is English, when they're using this in a project, for example. So that's when I want to do discovery learning. It's not really important how to make the projects themselves or what they are making, but about utilizing the language. So that's how I would do it. So you want to really break it down into what you want to do in class first, then choose the right method to do it. So don't just go into, I want to do conventional learning today, whatever it is, I want to do conventional. I want to do inquiry-based in the next lesson, because that's usually what happens at the webinar, right? It's like, oh, I learned this from Mr. Kevin and Miss Uyun today. I'm going to apply it tomorrow to my discovery learning. But then tomorrow you have a test. So then you're setting yourself for failures or your students for failures. So know exactly the circumstance that you need to do. So these are some things that Atlas provides that's already naturally related to, I would say, inquiry-based learning or discovery learning. So at the beginning of the unit, this is for English Escalate, so for secondary schools, basically. So we always start with questions in the cover page. If you take a look at the bottom there, there's a question, how's life, right? That's the topic, the unit topic. But then we're initiating questions. What is the person doing? So students start thinking, I think she's writing a diary. I think she's doing her homework. I think she is traveling, making plan for her traveling. Or the next question, who do you think the person is writing for? That seems like it's a postcard. Maybe she's writing to her family, maybe to her boyfriend. Ha ha ha. Right? So students are exploring themselves. Then the last one, do you like writing letters? Then relate to themselves, right? Oh, I've never wrote letters before. I don't know if I like it or not. Maybe I'm trying to do it today, see if I like it, right? So that's how you do it. Then you get to the aims later. We're going to blah, 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 blah. Then on the right side, we have the Atlas zone. This self-identity you see there. That's the end of every unit. We are providing this project-based learning for you that you can use anytime you want. So there are actually 6 in total in every book because there are 6 units. And this is more, I would say you can do discovery learning in this way because there is no right or wrong answer because it's all about the students themselves, right? It's about discovering who they are. For example, who am I? Why is it important? How? What is your personality? We cannot assume that every student has the same personality, right? Maybe one student will think, oh, I think this is my MBTI, for example. I am an ESTP, so I like to do this, I like to do that. I am an INFJ, I'm an introvert, so I don't like to hang out with a lot of friends. See, they discover by themselves. You don't tell them like, this is what INFJ is, this is what ESTP is. That's not what it is. It's students exploring themselves, finding what's relatable to them, and they're learning something from it, right? Okay. And in the lesson plan, it's also laid out for you. So you do not need to worry. So if you, let's say, I want to use Atlas and I want to try to use inquiry-based learning or discovery learning, but I'm not really too sure about it. I don't know how to start. Don't worry, we provide the lesson plan for you. So you can take a look at the lesson plan itself. For example, there's reading section. There's a comic on the left side, right? If you take a look at the lesson plan, it says, before reading, ask students some questions. Do you come to this high school with friends or from your previous school, or maybe you just met them today, for example? Then, oh, I met Omar today. So Omar is my new friend, but I have some old friends here. I have Miss Nadia and so on, for example. Then you're making it relatable to them. That's more inquiry-based, right? Then on the right side, we have the Atlas zone, right? Share the happiness, also reading, but we invite students to actually explore themselves. What do I understand from reading this article? Maybe from one student, they think that, oh, I think the article is about this. But another student says like, no, I don't think so. For me, it's about this. Accept all possible answers, right? They're all acceptable. So there's no wrong or right answer. That's if you want to do the discovery learning that way. So that's one example how you can do discovery learning, or if you want to do inquiry-based learning itself using Atlas. So the last part, my key takeaways, please do not worry about the differences. I know a lot of teachers is like, if somebody asks me the difference between the two, I might not be able to tell them right away. It's not important. Difference is not important. What is important is your approach is more student-centered and induces critical thinking because both are working towards that. The second one, student-centered approaches often work well together. So think about deductive, inductive instead of deductive. If we're talking about teaching grammar, or function-based approach instead of just the regular traditional conventional way approach. Scaffolding, right? They're all related together because they're all student-centered. So if you have learned something that is more student-centered, any type of approaches, the tendency is they will work together with another approach. And feel free to mix out. Do not have to segregate one or the other. And third one, it does not mean that this is only the best approach. find which approach works best for which circumstance, considering the drawbacks to each one. And planning is the key to success. So don't come to class without any plans and just basically having an excuse saying that I'm doing inquiry-based learning, so I don't need any plans. I'm just going to ask students questions and have them discuss until the end of the lesson. That's just you being lazy, okay? We have to put it out there. There's a difference between being lazy and actually doing inquiry-based learning, because inquiry-based learning involves planning process. There's a direction to it. The last one, know your role. Your roles might change. Sometimes you're a facilitator, sometimes you're an instructor, but in this case, we learned today for inquiry-based and for discovery learning, you have to be more facilitators more than anything else, because you want students to explore on their own. So the last part for me, I love this quote from a book called How Children Learn by John Holt. The best kind of learning is when you don't know when you don't know you're learning, but you are learning. So that's, I think, is the main essence of inquiry-based and discovery itself, right? We don't want students to realize that they're actually learning something from it, basically. Okay, good. I think that's pretty much it from me. So I'm going to give it back to Miss Nadia, and we're going to probably open up for some question and answer session, right?
Yes, Mr. Kevin. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. So Mr. Kevin has shared anything regarding the things that I love is the drawbacks. Thank you, Mr. Kevin, for sharing that one. Okay, so especially every time we want to implement some new approaches, we need to know the drawbacks, I guess, first, right? Okay, all right. So now it is time for us to have question and answer. It's going to be a short one. Okay, but here I've got some what is a comment, or probably Mr. Kevin, you also can help us to take a look at, okay, and give some comment, okay, or feedback. So here from Ibu Isti, she said, so the inquiry-based learning or discovery learning is the basic method supporting the differentiation class in teaching learning. So what do you think, Mr. Kevin?
Oh, so the inquiry-based learning or discovery learning is the basic method supporting differentiation. Okay, so I think it's the other way around. So I feel like it's differentiation itself that is the basic of these two, because differentiation means there's not a specific single approach how you can differentiate, right? That's why it's always hard when somebody asks a question, how do we differentiate? There's not only one way to do it. And these are some of the ways that you can differentiate in class. I think it's the other way around. So it's not that this become differentiation, but differentiation becomes this, if I may say. So it's more general, because when somebody asks like differentiation, it's not just about these two, right? There's other ways to differentiate as well. Even through grading your language, there's also differentiating your classroom itself, or even dividing students in class. Let's say you want to still do the conventional way of teaching, right? The traditional way of teaching still, but you are dividing the students into groups, maybe the strong one, medium, and also the lower skill. So basically all these three, they're in the same classrooms, but they're all in different groups. That's already differentiation, but we're still using conventional method, right? So I would say it's the other way around. So differentiation is the basic, it's the general that inspires these approaches, basically.
Okay, so Miss Isni also, anyway, I've just seen this one, or both. In conventional learning, the instruction is running based on the capacity of the teacher. Sometimes I don't use the certain methods that I had known because I know the condition of my students. It is related to the contextual of the environment around the school. So yeah, Mr. Kevin, can you share your opinion regarding this one?
Sure. Okay. So I'm trying to understand, but please correct me if I got it wrong. But basically, I think it's asking like if you are using the conventional way of teaching, but you have very limited skills in terms of like what kind of instructions you can give to the students. So that then at the end of the day, you choose the inquiry-based one or the discovery one because you feel like you don't have strong instruction giving skills. So in my opinion, again, it depends on the circumstance. If you still need to use the conventional way of teaching, then you still need to use that. Let's say you're facing a test, right? It's what is it, like a final exam. then you can't do discovery learning or inquiry based for that one because it's all about test taking skills. So you want to improve your instruction giving skills. So it does not mean this doesn't become an excuse, as I have mentioned earlier, right? Let's say teachers don't have time. I don't have enough time, so I'm gonna do discussion. So that means it's inquiry-based learning. That's not how it is. Same thing here. If you don't have enough skills in terms of giving instructions, you want to improve it first. Because even if you're using inquiry-based or discovery learning, you need to still give clearer instructions as well. Because if you just give, let's say, okay, guys, I want you to explore and do this, but you're not guiding them, it's just in the open air, then students are not really getting the aim itself. So please still improve your giving instruction skills. And there are ways to improve, but the first one is to give out more than what you think you should give. That's one of my suggestion is whenever I have any first year teachers, if this is your first year teaching, do more. So even if it seems like I feel like I'm talking too much, Mr. Kevin, because it feels like I have to keep elaborating again and again. And whenever I'm giving instruction, it's very slow because I'm not used to giving instruction. That's okay. That's the beginning, right? Once you get used to it, it becomes faster, it becomes more efficient, and you know how to be more concise in giving instructions and getting across towards the student's understanding, basically. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Kevin. Okay, so Mr. Kevin and Ibu Isni, you probably can continue the discussion on chat box because we have limited time. I'm so sorry. Okay. I think that's all for the session, question and answer on this session, Mr. Kevin. Thank you so much for your thoughts and also insight today. All right. Hopefully, all of the teachers here can, find out what's the best and the things that they can implement in their school and their classroom, right? Okay, so Bapak Andi Sirajuddin, we are going to have the second session for now. Okay, so I guess we have to, yeah, lower your hand for a moment. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. Big round of applause to Mr.
Thank you so much,
Kevin.
everyone. Are you gonna ask me for the keywords?
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you so much for reminding me. So what is the keyword, Mr. Kevin?
Okay, just 2 words. Stay curious.
Stay curious. Why is it, Mr. Kevin?
I think because that's the main essence of the two approaches that we're talking about today. We want students to remain curious because if whatever we're doing, if they're not curious anymore, then we know they are not engaged with your lesson and our approaches won't matter to them anyway.
Okay, so stay curious, right? Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. Okay, so we are going to meet Mr. Kevin again on our group photo session, right? So I believe that all of you teachers, you still stay curious, right? Especially there's a question, right, from Ibu Dian Noveta. What is the main differences between inquiry-based learning and discovery learning in brief? Okay, so Ibu Dian, okay, do not worry. We are going to have the second session with Miss Uyun Nishar. So Miss Uyun will tell us a lot about this. Okay, I guess it is time for me to greet Miss Uyun. Hello. Okay, wait a second. I will make you as a co-host. There you go. Okay.
Okay, I thought there
Okay.
was something wrong with my device. Hello, Nadia. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well. What about you, Miss?
Oh, we're wearing matching colors.
Yes.
Yeah,
As well as the
unexpectedly.
yes, as
Oh,
well as the veil, I
lovely.
guess. Okay. All right. Okay, so Miss Oyun, I think it is time for us to have the session with you. The floor is
Okay.
yours, Miss.
Right. Thank you, Nadia, and thank you, Mr. Kevin. You brought the class to a very fresh and strong start, so which is great. Ibu Bapak, good afternoon. My name is Uyun Ibu Bapak. Currently, I'm working for GovTech Edu. Mainly, I help with the development of platform Merdeka Mengajar. Kalau Ibu Bapak sudah pernah berkontribusi perangkat ajar ke platform Merdeka Mengajar, saya dan tim membantu quality assurance-nya. Jadi perangkat ajar yang baik? Terus seperti apa yang bisa kita terbitkan? Proses penelaahannya seperti apa? So, I've been working behind it for the past 2 years. Tapi nanti jangan tanyakan tentang itu ya. So we're not going to discuss about it. We're going to mainly discuss about the discovery versus inquiry learning. And before we start, hi, Ibu Bapak, good afternoon. Before we start, I would like to ask a question. Ibu Bapak, we have learned that there are some traditional approaches and models of learning, and there are more modern ones, gitu ya. Do you think you are completely leaving? You're completely hating, or maybe you don't want to use the traditional methods anymore. What happens to your classroom? Do you still use traditional methods, and why? Maybe sometimes I still teach grammar only. Does it happen in your classroom? I noticed Pa Muhammad Jamli is nodding his head. Right? Yeah. What about the others? Do you think, right? Do you think there are traditional methods that you still use in the classroom? And what are they? I want to know a bit more about this.
Yeah, so you
Mm-hmm.
can open up your microphone. That's okay
Oh,
because
that would be
I
lovely.
already, yes, I already open up
Oh,
the
okay.
access for you.
Well, that's perfect. Now you can unmute yourself and maybe raise your hand first and let me know what are some traditional methods or approaches that you still use in your classroom. But Muhammad Jamali, my students have lower skill of speaking English. All right. So do you still teach your vocabulary by giving definitions? Oh, yeah, I agree.
I did.
Elaborate more, Papa, please.
Uh, I still use the method, traditional method, because our students' skills still lower about speaking skills. So no other way to teach them. Especially, I give them for only grammar and little
I
speaking,
know.
because ask when I ask them some questions, they are still not answer in English, but still a mixed Indonesia. It's hard for me
Ah,
to take them in high level. That's all.
I get it completely. But Jamali, what grade you're teaching now?
Uh, 12 grades of vocational schools.
Well, I was in Polytechnic for a while, like for years, and I'm not trying to distinguish between Polytechnic or vocational students, but it is indeed that sometimes in specific contexts they do need certain help in a way. Right. Thank you. We are going to get through that, and maybe I do agree that in that context, it may be more challenging to actually ask students to answer questions, even formulate their own questions. All right. Please wait for me. I'm going to read the chat. In some cases, Ibu Pori, I use the traditional approaches and students need that. I agree. Mr. Kevin mentions that sometimes we have to take them through a more traditional approach because they are facing a test. They need to take notes. Oh, that's interesting. Such as how to use pronouns. It depends on the material and difficulty level. I agree with you, Ibu Baba. All right. So now let's move a little bit from the classroom to real world situation. Ibu Bapak, based on your many years of living, how do you eventually solve problems? Do you go to textbooks? Do you open up maybe the novels that you have read a long time ago? Or you just try to be critical, you just try to solve the problems by really relying on your experiences and your logic, maybe? How do you solve problems in the real world? I would love to hear some of you, maybe one or two, if you want to share anything. So we're not only talking about the classroom, we are talking about your real world experiences. Saya biasanya sampai kalau udah merasa am I alone facing this gitu ya Ibu Bapak, saya tuh buka Quora. If you have open Quora, Quora actually shares stories and insights from users, and they are user generated reviews or answers. So it feels like I'm talking to someone who experienced the same thing. And maybe eventually, what our students face in the real world when they use English, when they want to implement what they learn in the classroom, already moves so far away from what they learned in the textbook. And that's what we want to encourage them by applying the inquiry and discovery learning models. Right. Oh, I like it, Ibu Kari. We discuss with other fellow teachers when we encounter some interesting, some $100 questions in very urgent conditions. I use some ChatGPT. All right. All right. We don't hate ChatGPT. We just want to use them more wisely. Am I right? Okay. Ibu Bapak, so Mr. Kevin has started this webinar by adding some very insightful thoughts about the inquiry and discovery learning. In my session after this, we are going to learn more about how these are implemented in the English classroom. I will give you some case studies, maybe, and we are going to learn together through the case studies. So we are moving away from the theories, from the concept that Mr. Kevin has talked about early on, and we are going to talk more at practical level. I hope that will be helpful so you get more ideas on how to implement it. I'm going to share my screen, Ibu Bapak. So allow me to introduce myself a little bit. Right. Which one is more suitable for our classroom? We are going to find out. This is me. I got my master's at University College London. I was teaching for 4 years in State Polytechnic of Malang. And then now my career shifts a little bit. So now I'm working more as the program coordinator or project manager. First, I worked for Word Learning for the program implemented by the US Embassy. And then now I'm working as the education project manager at GovTech Edu, the PMM that I mentioned. And I became a part-time researcher as well for a year in Saraswati Education based in the UK. Now we are going to get to the topic. So I believe Mr. Kevin has also mentioned, if not repeated this several times, that both models, either inquiry or discovery, they sat on the need of critical thinking. So students need to have questions or inquiries, and they want to come up with solutions, even controversies or inventions. We want students to have curiosity and questions to drive the learning. So if we talk about pembelajaran bermakna, we can do it in so many ways. One of them is by doing this, because students will have to pull back layers of understanding. We don't want them to get just one answer out of the topics that we teach, but we want them to truly have a core understanding of this. And this approach allows for more, creativity, and also it helps to have greater depth of learning. I believe that at some point we are thinking about this. How can we make our learning more hands-on? How can we create activities that involve our students better, right? And how do we teach our students to think? Kita tahu di kurikulum Merdeka ada hal yang sangat penting dan ini kita pelajari dari Ki Hajar Dewantara tentang bagaimana kita harus menjadi pembelajar sepanjang hayat. Salah satunya adalah kita mengajarkan bagaimana untuk berpikir. Nah, framework untuk berpikir itu tidak dibangun dalam 1 dan 2 hari. We teach students to be critical. We teach students on how to think by taking them to habits of learning that can make them understand, all right, in the real world, later when I work, later when I find something difficult, this is how I'm going to solve my problem. Itu tujuannya. Next thing is that we don't believe that English in itself is not something, is not a subject that is driven only by one correct answer, right? For example, sometimes we find it difficult to decide, okay, I'm going to use this tense or that because of the context that we need to use, right? Sometimes simple present even can be used for schedule. Kadang memahamkan kepada siswa kita bahwa well bahasa itu memang bukan sesuatu yang jawabannya pertanyaannya apa, jawabannya harus apa, right? Even that is difficult for me to accept that okay, actually for this tense there are so many variety of contexts in which we can use that, and I believe it helps us to be not only convergent thinker but also divergent thinker on how if we are a convergent thinker, there's this one question and we answer this one question by collecting facts gitu ya. Tapi kalau divergent thinker, we have this one question and then we have several ideas to actually answer this question. Apakah dua-duanya Apakah ada yang lebih baik di antara divergent and convergent? Sama dengan discovery inquiry. There is no, neither one is the champion. Dibutuhkannya di konteks yang berbeda, right? That's why even the case with divergent and convergent thinking, maybe we want to start with divergent thinking, especially in learning language because it helps our students to explore the problem space and generate possible solution. Kemudian mengerucutkan ide-ide anak-anak yang beragam banget nih, we switch to convergent thinking, di mana kemudian oke, ternyata ada loh benang merahnya dari konsep yang sedang kita bicarakan. So actually, by applying either inquiring or discovery learning, we are trying to make our students be more divergent because so many things in our classroom now is convergent. But later, if you think that, okay, I think my student now needs to focus on the theories, now needs to focus on the concept, kita balik lagi ke convergent. Okay, now fact check nih Ibu Bapak. Sebetulnya discovery and inquiry learning, they're not new, right? It's been around for some time. If you see Permendikbud 22 di tahun 2016, bahkan sudah disuggest standar proses di mana ada 3 model pembelajaran yang disarankan untuk diterapkan. Dan tujuannya sama, untuk membentuk perilaku scientific, sosial, serta mengembangkan rasa keingintahuan. Di sini, discovery, inquiry, learning are used interchangeably. And it's always been like that because, as Mr. Kevin mentioned, there is only a slight difference between the two. So we are not going to, in specific, try to distinguish either discovery or inquiry. But I'm going to help you understand how later in the classroom we can implement it in different steps and stages. Bukan hal baru dan saya percaya mungkin tidak 100%, but to a certain degree, I think Ibu Bapak, you have tried to do this in your classroom. Okay, so now I'm going to give you the differences of discovery and inquiry in terms of concept or in terms of component, in terms of definition, maybe. So in the discovery learning, it is mentioned that students observe and draw conclusions. Meanwhile, in inquiry learning, students formulate and test hypothesis. Jadi perbedaannya adalah dari pertanyaannya sendiri. Kalau discovery, itu students not necessarily come with a question, tapi kalau inquiry, students yang formulate questionnya sendiri, and they need to test the hypothesis on how they are going to solve the problem or the questions that they have. Gitu. Ini perbedaannya. Now I have 2 case studies. Ada 2 pembelajaran yang saya tuliskan di sebelah sini. Oh no. Wait, I think I need to. Okay, right. Technical problems. So I have two case studies. I have two lessons here. The first one is students creating two different designs for a leaflet or poster. Ini disuruh bikin dua poster atau leaflet gitu ya. Kontennya sama, tapi arrangement of information-nya beda. Kemudian, students tuh diminta atau tujuan pembelajarannya adalah students harus menemukan, students will be able to identify mana desain yang lebih effective dan lebih mudah dipahami. Setelah completing the design gitu ya, students memajang leaflets or postersnya around the classroom and then they collect the feedback from their classmates. Ini case yang pertama. Case yang kedua, students watch two videos. One showing a meeting that begins with a small talk and another without any small talk. Small talk is a chit chat basa-basi gitu ya di awal meeting. Then they analyze and conclude why small talk is important in the given context. Please tell me, Bapak Ibu, which one is discovery and which one is inquiry? You can write it on the chat box. Discovering, one or two. Inquiry, one or two. I'm gonna check your answer. Mana yang discovery, mana yang inquiry? Okay, I've received answers. Oh, belum. Attendance list. Purista, thank you. Discovery is number 2. Okay, is there any other thoughts? Which one is discovery and which one is inquiry based on the description that I give you here? Okay, more answers coming. One is inquiry. Okay. Different answers. That's okay. Mostly answer that discovery is number 2, inquiry is number 1. Okay. Okay, thank you, Ibu Bapak, for participating. Notice that there are different thoughts, but that's okay. So let's check, ya, Ibu Bapak. The keyword here is that in inquiry, students formulate and test hypothesis. Mungkin kata hypothesis ini sesuatu yang strange buat kita English teachers ya, karena biasanya lebih digunakan di mapel STEM mungkin ya, science, technique, and then math. Tapi hypothesis di sini juga bisa berarti bahwa students have their own perception. They have only perception of okay, this is effective, this is not. And then they try out both methods. In this case, they try out both designs. Oh, kalau aku mendesain leaflet seperti ini, assumptionku sih ini effective. They try both. And they conclude this one is effective based on the learning that I got not only from my teacher but also my friend. That actually leads to, okay, sudah banyak yang menjawab ya. That actually leads to this answer, Ibu Bapak. Inquiry is number 1. Kenapa? Karena hipotesisnya dites dengan naruh dua-duanya, poster atau leafletnya, dan meminta feedback dari teman sekelas. Sementara untuk discovery, students tidak formulate questions. Students observe. Observasinya di sini dilakukan dengan video. It's not necessary that the learning is guided by the questions they formulate on their own. Gitu ya, Ibu Bapak. Jadi untuk inquiry ini ada proses di mana mereka formulate question sendiri. Mana ya dari dua desain ini yang effective gitu. Ini kontennya sama, tapi kemudian di-arrange secara berbeda, which one is more effective. And then they try out their hypothesis they draw conclusions. Sementara discovery, questionsnya not necessarily come from them. Bisa saja kita sebagai teacher guiding the questions, hanya saja cara untuk kemudian menjawab questionsnya itu ya on their own, dengan mereka kita lepas melakukan observation. Gitu. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna move on to the next difference. Ada lagi loh perbedaannya, walaupun saya bilang tadi dan Mr. Kevin juga udah bilang perbedaannya sedikit sekali, but actually there is gitu ya. Ini by definition Ibu Bapak, difference between discovery and inquiry. The second, in discovery learning, teachers often begin by providing a stimulating experience or thought-provoking question that spark curiosity. Jadi siapa yang memberikan pertanyaannya di sini? Students or teacher? Oke, yang memberikan pertanyaannya teacher. Students tidak perlu langsung, aku ingin tahu ini. But teachers actually provide a stimulating experience or question. So it's either one ya, Ibu Bapak nggak harus question aja atau diberikan scenario aja gitu ya. Meanwhile, in inquiry, students formulate their own questions. Teachers tugasnya tidak memberikan question. Teachers guide students to come up with meaningful and open-ended questions. So, there is a shift of role. Ada gantian peran gitu ya. Biasanya kita yang selalu always memberikan pertanyaan. Here in inquiry learning, our students who are smart and motivated gitu ya, memberikan their own questions, formulating questionsnya sendiri. We guide them to come up with meaningful and open-ended questions. I give you scenarios again on how we are going to implement it in the classroom. Your job is to guess which one is discovery, which one is inquiry. Next thing. Okay, this is a bit long, but that's okay ya, Bapak. Kita coba ke case yang pertama dulu. The first case, teacher begins a lesson on persuasive writing by showing two contrasting advertisement, ya. The teacher asks, which of these ads is more effective and why? Setelah itu, students are tasked with identifying persuasive techniques and justifying which ad they believe is more impactful. The first case. The second, the lesson begins with the teacher providing a brief summary of the short story the class is about to read. Ada typo ini afterwards harusnya. I'm sorry. Afterwards, students break into small groups and complete. Kita pakai KWL chart. K is what I know and W is what I want to know. Hanya dua ini yang diisikan. Jadi setelah dikasih tahu, okay, have you learned that actually in some stories the end is not always a happy ending? Kita hanya introduce gitu ya. Lalu misal ceritanya seperti apa, kita berikan sedikit summary. Students complete the KW chart out of KWL ya. L-nya kita tinggalkan dulu. And then we want them to brainstorm questions. And the questions sound like, contohnya, what motivates the main character's action? How do these choices affect other characters? Misal, what role does conflict play in shaping the character's identity? Jadi dua hal yang berbeda, dua teaching yang berbeda. Which one is discovery and which one is inquiry? Let's find the answer. Oh, lovely. Now you have similar answers. Number one is discovery, number two inquiry. Okay. Okay. Let's check. Number two is inquiry. Now we are not bored. We agree on the same thing. Lovely. Lovely. I'm going to wait. Maybe there is a bit more thoughts. Perfect. This is perfect, Ibu Bapak. This is perfect. So you are right. You are right. Here, the students come up with their own questions. Students come up with what they want to learn from the story that we are going to read together in the class. Meanwhile, discovery starts with something that I believe we have done so many times in our classroom. We have done as we have no, not we have. We frequently ask questions to our students in the beginning of the class. Tanpa Ibu Bapak sadari, without you actually realize it, you have done a bit of discovery and a bit of inquiry in your classroom, right? The easiest example I think is the KWL chart. This is something that has been around for many years dan kayaknya bahkan ketika saya sekolah pun ya KWL ini udah digunakan gitu. Sehingga sebetulnya metodenya secara sinteks mungkin tidak kita lakukan secara penuh. But there is a bit of each component that we have incorporated in our classroom. My question, do you think even students with lower level of competency can actually learn using the inquiry model? Dengan membayangkan dengan membayangkan study case yang barusan saya bawakan kepada Ibu Bapak, do you think it is possible for lower level students to actually learn using inquiry model? At least a bit of that? I think so. I think so. Even though they may not have the perfect English, but the goal to help them learn how to think is there. All right? I do agree that we teach language, but to a large part as teacher, what we need to teach our students these days is not only our subject, but also other skills such as critical thinking, such as other soft skills. And a part of teaching how to think is by stimulating students through these habits of asking, of questioning, of answering their own curiosity. And maybe kalau kalau mungkin di events or di ruang diskusi lain gitu ya Ibu Bapak, we emphasize so much about syntax. Kalau discovery sintaksnya seperti ini, kalau inquiry sintaksnya seperti ini. Ibu Bapak, I assure you, even di platform Merdeka Mengajar sekarang, we don't want teachers to make lesson plans using this one similar syntax. Kalaupun misal itu inquiry learning dan tidak tertulis di situ sintaksnya, selama we can observe the inquiry components in that, that is still okay. That is super okay. So we move away from the syntax ya, Ibu Bapak, but the differences in terms of how it is implemented are somehow like this, seperti yang saya gambarkan di case study seperti ini. Oh, Ibu Isti, this is a very great reflection. In my class, students tend to learn using the discovery method. It will be hard to apply inquiry method. That is fine, right? That is fine. Seperti contoh saat kita merencanakan diferensiasi pembelajaran Ibu Bapak. Kita tidak merencanakan diferensiasi berdasarkan berdasarkan gaya belajar lagi, right? It's not about whether students are visual or auditory or kinesthetic. We designed it around students' needs. Kebutuhannya dia apa? Kemana kita harus membawa mereka dari level of competence yang segini ke tujuan pembelajaran kita. Jadi same thing. Tidak harus kita apply semua, but we apply what works in our classroom based on what our students need. Gitu ya. I would like to discuss this actually, but maybe we have limited time, so I'm going to take you through this. Okay, Ibu Bapak, we are going to attend a class at SD Bakti Bangsa. I'm going to play a short video and we are going to try to analyze the teaching done in this classroom, okay? This is not a language classroom, but I think it's a good reflection to look back at what we have learned today. Ada tiga hal yang mau kita lihat dari SD Bakti Bangsa. Three things. The first is the success in the classroom. Kita akan cross deh challenge-nya, kita langsung ke bat ya. Jadi we are going to see what's been successful in the classroom and what are some potentials that we can add to the teaching. Jadi ada dua ya, Ibu Bapak yang akan kita observe. The rose is the success, the but is the potential. Again, this is not an English classroom, but I think it helps us, it's going to help us incorporate a bit of either discovery or inquiry learning. This is a biology class, I think, but that's okay. Let's go to SD Bakti Bangsa now. Okay, this is SD Bakti Bangsa, Ibu Bapak. Oh wait, I think I need to share my sound. Share sound. Alrighty, sharing my sound. Okay, so this is SD Bakti Bangsa, and we are going to see how the teacher is delivering the lesson. Let's see. This is bahasa Indonesia ya, Ibu Bapak, but that's okay. Kita lihat apa yang sudah berhasil dari kelas ini, dan potensinya adalah di mana kita bisa menambahkan a bit of inquiry model or a bit of discovery model.
Hari ini, kita akan belajar topik baru, yaitu menyayangi hewan. Siapa yang memiliki hewan peliharaan di rumah?
Saya, Bu, saya.
Saya punya kucing, Bu.
Saya juga punya kelinci di rumah, Bu. Hamster, Bu.
Wah, ternyata banyak ya. Tapi bagaimana kita tahu hewan apa yang menjadi hewan peliharaan yang baik? Lalu, bagaimana kita dapat menentukan hewan tertentu dapat dipelihara atau tidak?
Biasanya saya dan Mama bawa kucing saya ke dokter, Bu.
Diberi makan dan minum juga, Bu.
Terima kasih Siska dan Reno. Ya, benar apa yang sudah disampaikan tadi. Hewan peliharaan perlu diberi makan dan minum, dirawat kebersihannya, dan dicek kesehatan. Jikalau membutuhkan, bisa dibawa ke dokter hewan juga. Nah, pembelajaran kali ini bertujuan untuk menganalisis hewan apa yang diperbolehkan untuk hewan peliharaan dan juga langkah-langkah cara perawatan hewan tersebut.
Right, we are going to stop there. You have observed how the teacher introduces the topic to the students, and you have observed as well how then the learning objective is introduced to them. Sekarang kita lihat bagaimana kemudian pembelajarannya didesain untuk mencapai tujuan pembelajaran ini. Wait, I'm going to move here. So students are divided into small groups.
Tentang apa yang akan kalian eksplor pada pertemuan kali ini. Kalian akan diminta untuk mencari jawaban dari pertanyaan, apa ciri-ciri hewan yang dapat dan tidak dapat dipelihara? Kalian dapat memilih salah satu dari pilihan pertama, buat bagan hewan tertentu, dan apa yang dapat dilakukan untuk membuat mereka menjadi hewan peliharaan.
So the teacher actually helps students, guides students, even with a chart to answer the questions. Gitu ya, bahkan diberikan cara untuk misalnya itu seperti ini loh, gitu. Next.
Peliharaan. Pilihan kedua, pilih 2 atau 3 hewan dan bandingkan mereka dalam diagram. Pilihan ketiga, cantumkan karakteristik yang diperlihatkan oleh hewan peliharaan dan urutkan dari yang paling penting hingga yang paling tidak penting. Sampai di sini, adakah pertanyaan anak-anak?
Okay, I'm going to stop there. So there are actually three methods that the teacher introduced to the students on how to answer the question. Pertanyaannya hanya satu dan itu diberikan oleh ibu guru. Apa ciri hewan yang dapat dan tidak dapat dipelihara? But then the way to answer it, there are 3 different charts to help students answer it. My question first, Ibu Bapak, is that more into discovery or inquiry learning? Okay. Bapak Robertus answered discovery. Ibu Nurwenda is inquiry. Ibu Din, thank you for your answer. I'm going to get there after this. More to discovery, more to inquiry. Okay. Any other answers? Discovery Miss. Okay, okay. Ibu Bapak, maybe I'm going to get back here a little bit. That both models have been used interchangeably. If we look back here, actually the class started with the teacher asking questions. Apa? Pertanyaannya tidak diformulate oleh students, tapi dimulai dari pertanyaan yang diberikan oleh teacher. So teacher gives questions, the students answer, and these questions help students to know what topic they are going to learn. That is actually discovery, because in inquiry, students need to come up with their own questions. However, interestingly, in discovery learning, although teacher gives the question, in discovery learning, teacher does not give students a way to answer that question. Kita bebaskan bagaimana mereka mau menjawab pertanyaan tersebut. Meanwhile, in inquiry, students are guided to choose, to select, to try out different ways to answer that question. So, to really decide, is this inquiry, is this discovery, is eventually super hard because there is a bit of the components in the classroom that lean more to discovery and a bit that lean more to inquiry. And I believe this is the reality of our classroom. It's super hard to distinguish if we want to use discovery only or inquiry only. We can use either one based on what our students need, based on our students' readiness. Okay, Ibu Bapak. Now, in general, we are going to evaluate the class. So if you look at the classroom, what do you think went well in the class? Apa yang sudah dilakukan dengan baik in the class? Anyone wants to say something? Maybe you can unmute yourself, Ibu Bapak. Just one person, that's okay. What went well in the classroom? What do you think are are good things in the classroom based on what you learned just now?
Active.
Yes, Ibu Sri Rejeki, please.
The students are very active and they answer the teacher's question, not only one, but some of them.
Okay, lovely. Students are very active to answer teacher's questions. Not only one, but all of them. Okay, perfect. And then maybe I can go to the chat box. A discussion, right? The discussion. the first thing that Ibu Sri Rejuki mentioned leads to the second, the discussion. But let's move to the but. But is the area of improvement gitu ya. Apa sih yang bisa ditingkatkan gitu? What are some areas for improvement? Any ideas? Maybe if the teacher wants to make it a bit more discovery or a bit more inquiry, what can they do? Kalau tadi teachernya langsung memberikan model. You can answer this question by either the first apa ya tadi Wei? You can answer this question by the first option, discuss using the first option or the second or the third gitu ya. Itu yang terjadi di pelajaran yang barusan kita lihat. Maybe I would say that one of the potential, I think, for a higher level students, maybe is to let them research first. Let the students research first. And the research can be done by reading, can be done by providing not only reading from the textbook, but also reading from any resources that we have prepared before, right? Jadi kita tidak langsung memberikan, okay, answer this question by choosing either one of these options, gitu. We can let our students do research first. And by doing the research, then they can identify the ways in which they can answer the question. So that was a very good lesson. But we can make it a bit more discovery or inquiry by having this one step. That is to motivate students to do their own research to answer their questions. All right. So I think that will be the end of my presentation. I will read they can answer questions. Oh yeah, well, they can answer the questions by drawing, or even maybe they can do so many other things to answer the question. It doesn't have to be by using the charts that the teacher prepares. Nadia, actually,
Halo.
that's the end of it.
Oke, Kakak.
Budi,
Thank you.
Budi, thank you. Right. So,
Okay.
question and answer, or
Yes. Yes, we are going to have the question and answer, Bapak Ibu.
okay.
If you have question, you can raise your hand. Okay. Okay, Pak Yohanes,
Oh,
don't
that's
worry.
okay.
Yes, you can raise your hand or Miss Uyun, actually I have some question on the previous
Oh
chats.
yeah, I
Yeah,
did
so
see that.
okay, Ibu Din Noveta asks, what consideration should we have in choosing between both of them? Okay, so in brief, Kak Uyun, what do you think the consideration in choosing
Yeah,
this?
in brief, maybe I will say in the beginning, inquiry is a bit more challenging because I think a part of formulating a question is by having an a basic knowledge about the topic that we're going to discuss. So if we design our lesson based on topics, that will be easy. So not easy, that will be easier to make our students formulate their own questions. So maybe we are going to learn today about social media. The questions will be so if we ask our students to complete the KWL about the threat of social media, maybe the questions will be, can we get criminalized by doing something wrong in social media, for example? To begin with, I think um, first we need to design our lesson not based on a certain grammar features, but based on topics. So students already have some basic understanding about the topic that we will discuss. So we stand on a more similar ground, if I may say. And the second is, I think, to know your students' readiness. I would say that if students are not ready to formulate their own questions, to to really guide their own group to answer the question, maybe the way through and the way that may be effective for that student is discovered first. But all in all, it's based on those two things. Maybe it's based on your lesson design. Make sure that it's no longer based on certain graph features, but based on topic. And the second is by making sure that your students are ready. And a part of knowing our students are ready is to really involve in their discussion, involve in their learning, not only by, seeing their score. Well, that's a part of it, but really understanding how the classes went, how the classes is going is an important part of the decision, I think.
Okay, Kak Uyun, thank you so much for your answer. Yes, so we've
Sorry,
got, yeah,
we
we've
got
got a
so limited
very
time.
great feedback. Okay, Ibu Isti, yes, she said that you make them understand. Okay, thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Ibu.
All right. So I guess, Kak Uyun, it is the end of our session. No worry. Okay. We still can meet again on our next
Hey.
webinar, right? Okay. So thank you so much, Miss Uyun. I guess it is time for us, for me to ask the keyword for your session. What is that?
Oh yeah, maybe rose, thorn, but
Rose, thorn, bud. Okay, what is it, Miss Uyun?
it's actually rose, thorn, but is a reflection tool actually. So in one lesson or maybe in one project, there will always be something that is already successful that gives us challenges and that gives some potentials that we can improve later. So same thing goes in your classroom, Ibu Bapak. Your classroom will always have those three things. Rose, udah bagus nih. Thorn, ya, tapi ada tantangan. And but, no worries. We can improve these as potentials. Rose, thorn, and but.
Okay, so thank you so much, Miss Uyun. I guess
Thank you.
those keywords probably will be the keyword of teaching as well for the teachers, not
Yes,
only for this
yes,
webinar, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Now, Bapak Ibu, it is time for us to have the group photo. Yeah, Mr. Kevin, I invite you to join us again here. Oh, there you go. Okay. So I will pin both of you. Okay, and also Mr. Kevin. There you go. Okay, and I'm so happy that Bapak Ibu, you already opened up your camera because it is a photo group photo. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay, so I will start. Okay, I will capture all of us. Okay, I will start in yes. Say kiss, Bapak Ibu. 3, 2, 1, kiss. Okay, I will go to the second slide. Okay, I can see Ibu Ella Paparso. Okay, let me count. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Okay, all right. So I will share the photo as well as the the material, the slides for this webinar. Okay, by email. All right. So, Bapak Ibu, we are going to share the present list right now. Okay, so do not forget to fill in the keywords from Mr. Kevin and also the keywords from Miss Uyun. Okay, so last one, please give big round of applause for to our two speakers today, Mr. Kevin and Miss Uyun. Okay, that's very practical in an insightful session. Okay, uh, I take some notes anyway. Fun fact. Thank you so much. Okay, I cannot wait to also implement the approaches to our to in my classroom as well. Okay, so Bapak Ibu, thank you so much for today. We are going to meet again on our next session. Anyway, fun fact, we are going to help webinar uh, later on 12 September, September 20, right? So we are going to talk about Gen Alpha. Yay, siapa di sini Bapak Ibu yang murid-muridnya sudah Gen Alpha ya? Bagaimana memahami Gen Alpha? Sekarang sudah tidak musim lagi nih kayak Gen Z, sudah berpindah ke Gen Alpha. Ya, oke, how fast it is. Alright, so we are going to talk about it on our next webinar di tanggal 20 September 2024. Ya, oke, now, oke Bapak Ibu, Nadia also give you something, okay? There is a promo that you can use, okay, to take a look at, especially tadi, karena Mr. Kevin have talked, he has talked about how Atlaz try to help the critical thinking of your student increase, right? Okay, so you can take a look at also and have the book for you. Yeah, do not forget to use the code Atlaz 1209. Okay, you are going to get the discount. Yay. Okay. All right. So, okay, I think that's all for today, Bapak Ibu. If you have any question regarding the certificate or anything, you can contact Maya on WhatsApp. All right. Okay then. Thank you for today. See you on next webinar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Jadi kalau dari segi Atlaz ini udah bagus, sudah sangat bagus. Ada classroom-nya, sebenarnya sangat mempermudah kita sebagai seorang guru gitu. Cuman udah lengkap semua, sudah pas juga dengan kurikulum kita sekarang gitu. Mungkin keren.
Oke.
Ya.
Lesson plan-nya sangat bagus sekali, sangat membantu sekali. Karena memang juga jelas ini bagian mana partnya, mana misalnya menyimak atau berbicara. Dengan LMS ini sangat-sangat terbantu. Itu selalu anak-anak selalu minta gitu masuk hari ini Mister jadwalnya Atlaz. Saya bilang iya, oke. Terus mau boleh nggak 10 menit di awal kami main penguin. Dia mainnya tidak hanya di sekolah tapi di rumah juga dia main. Karena dia sangat ini sekali menyenangkan sih menurut saya.
Jauh ini sih bagus. Gua kelas itu udah pakai kurikulum Merdeka dan di situ itu TP-nya itu dipisahin antara kayak listening, speaking gitu, dan Atlaz itu emang udah ada part-partnya kan. Nah itu emang membantu saya banget gitu.
Maksudnya nggak ada yang jenuh gitu. Pas susah, bosan, nggak ada itu. Ya anak-anak semangat juga. Mereka harus mendengarkan dulu penjelasan gurunya baru mereka bisa ini. Jadi itu ada tantangan buat mereka untuk mencari tahu. Jadi lebih tertantang di buku Atlaz ini.
Karena visualnya ini juga membantu anak-anak dalam pembelajaran bahasa Inggris. Ini selaras lah, kemungkinan ada anak-anak yang suka menggambar dan lain-lain, kemudian di sini menggunakan komik yang colorful dengan gambar yang visual yang tampilan menarik.
Terlebih lagi kalau di buku itu kan kita tahu gambar-gambarnya yang menarik. Pas mereka bikin ekstrakurikuler dan gambar dan presentasikan, mereka malah nanya, "Sir, menurut Sir apa yang harusnya ada ekstrakurikuler di sini?" Jadi kita sharing, itu pas banget kan sama materinya. Saya gunakan juga sebagai buat speaking test mereka.
Juga akan membuat guru dan juga murid-murid jadi tertarik, dan begitu juga untuk bahasanya lain. Jadi kalau kata murid-murid yang lain, "Miss, ini bukunya bagus loh." Karena bahasa Inggrisnya nggak yang dasar-dasar lagi, kayak latihan-latihannya memang agak menantang, Miss, kayak begitu. Saya dan anak-anak sih menganggapnya udah memang levelnya memang naik gitu.
All right, Bapak Ibu. Yes, thank you so much for today's session. We are going to see you again on next webinar. It will be on September 12th, ya. September 20th. Oke. Jadi jangan lupa daftar karena kita bahasnya seru banget, nanti bahas tentang Gen Alpha. Yeay. Oke. Bye-bye semuanya Bapak Ibu. See you on next webinar. Have a nice day, ya. Dan selamat beristirahat semuanya. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye-bye.